Great, thank you. Well, thank you very much for the introduction and invitation. I'm very happy to talk about this research. And a lot of it is, I'm probably going to talk about one research primarily, and then that is actually um, like CHCI's funded project. So we submitted planning grants. So I want to acknowledge that grants first. But like the overall story that I'm going to talk about is about engagement and how we can cope with AI's disruption of engagement and learning. And I, so we could start with this words so there are many concerns that people, especially HCI, like researchers and many more these days about AI. And then these are kind of the buzzwords or topics that people have been looking at in HCI and ML, machine learning. So yeah, like fairness or integrity, like accountability, those are all important topics. And the other topic that we're going to talk about is like not often discussed, which is about engagement. So personally, the most annoying problem is for AI is that it's taking away all the fun stuff. So let me unpack a little bit on that. Um, so, I don't know if you would agree with me, but at least for me, writing is fun and coding is fun, music making is fun, like, all these fun stuff. And some people are doing this for professional reason, like to make money, but like, a lot of us just do this for fun. So, in general, learning something new is fun and creative practice is fun. And some, again, the most annoying thing for me is that AI is taking away all this fun stuff that I've been enjoying and discourage us for doing this sort of creative practice. Well, some may argue that, oh, this is like democratizing, creative practice to more number of people. Um, but I mean, there's some point in that, but I think it's like there are more fundamental problem. So one question that I wanted to pose to the audience was that why do we play game? Like, why do you play game and why do we play game? And there's no, I don't know, financial utility. I mean, except the very few people, a small number of people who could play as a professional gamer. But like, there's no financial utility on playing game, and there's no, I don't know, like benefit or like tangible benefit of playing game other than maybe mental health releasing your stress. But we were playing because it's fun, right? So I noticed like some of the like machine learning researchers use this reinforcement learning to make AI agent play game, and then that's great. Like, and I am really fascinated that AI agent can learn these techniques and then play games. And then other part of me is saying that, well, why are they playing game? Like, like, of course, ML researchers are testing their algorithm, but fundamentally, AI agent does not have to play game, right? And I'm supposed to play game and have fun, not AI agent. So that was like sort of cynical side of me telling, I'm like, having thoughts when I see this sort of picture. And this is also, sort of, I used to be serious gamer. I mean, this is like a screen capture from a game called Bloodborne. It is like notorious game for like extreme difficulty. Personally, I played this game and then I was having this boss fight, and it took me like 3 weeks to beat this boss. And when I actually finally beat it, I was actually screaming in my room like 4 a.m. in the morning. I was having so much joy out of this playing game, and then doesn't make sense, right? Like, it doesn't make sense because I'm like putting a lot of efforts and time to have this like, like extreme or immense joy. But it's not like, generating any value out of it, right? So like there's some part that we cannot explain, which is like fun and engagement, like that in what humans do. So I don't know, like, we may argue that oh, like I don't have to play game anymore because AI agent can play for me. Like, that doesn't make sense, right? When it comes to engagement and fun. So the reason why I have this thought is like maybe because I have this personal background coming from computer music. And I've been like, I started my research career as a computer music researcher, and then like believe it or not, there's me in the picture, in every picture, me playing some weird musical instrument. And musical instrument is interesting because like from HCI perspective, and then this is like the picture that I always share in my talk, and this is Yo-Yo Ma running playing in a tiny desk concert, which is great. I recommend you to see it. Um, like if you think about musical instrument, like from HCI perspective, it doesn't make sense, right? Like it's violating all kinds of usability heuristics, like usability 101. So it's difficult to learn. It is hurting you. You have to put a lot of time and effort, and it takes years to master it. So it's like opposite of every any like usability heuristic that you can think of. But so if you bring HCI researcher to improve musical instrument, they may just replace it with play button on Spotify. So, but you can guess that there's some crazy people who are spending money and time and effort to master this musical instrument that is not usable at all, right? So why? I think there's like, like really rewarding experience that they're having out of like being able to um make other people feel empathetic to you by like, expressing your emotion, expressing your um um ideas through music. So like how do we preserve that given like how AI is replacing everything? And I think it's a really big barrier in creative process engagement. So you can imagine that it's easier than ever to create and generate artifact. But the easier it becomes, there's less room for human to have fun and engage themselves in expressive or creative and learning activities, or even enter a state of flow. So this is like a meme that I saw in Twitter where, hey, like there are a lot of AI creative tools that makes you feel like you create something. Like, I don't know if you heard of Suno, where you can type in prompt and, generate like really high quality music, but that does not give me the fun that I have from like, you know, performing in a band and playing with my friends. Like I don't get this kind of joy. I get surprised by it, like by how good it is. Maybe I feel good about it for the few attempts, but like, probably you will end up knowing that, oh, this is not, engaging at all. Some may argue that, well, we can still play a guitar, we can still draw stuff, like we can still be involved in creative practice and learning, right? So yeah, I mean, I guess so, but like I argue that it's going to be challenging more and more, and then I'm wanted to like think about how it become difficult and challenging. So I just created this figure. So first of all, because of AI and the cost and skills necessary to generate something artifact is like, going to be low. And the quality is really good. Like, this is like a couple of, probably last year when Google VO, now it's completely different with Nano Banana. But this was already impressive. And then this is, you know, you can create this sort of thing within a few minutes by typing something. So cost goes down and quality goes up. And what happened is that like we're gonna generate abundant AI generated artifacts, right? So I don't know if you remember all this like hype that we had last year or 2 years ago, where everyone was generating their profile picture and with this gibberish style, and so you will get a lot of AI generated material or creative artifact. And then what you get is that you don't get to trust something. So like a lot of the shorts or video that you see these days, you have to sometimes um, you know question whether this is AI generated or not. So this this graph um, was something that was done with old ChatGPT. I think it was GPT-2 or 3. And then they were not able to tell whether it is AI written or human written. Like it was basically a flip coin, right? Coin flip, right? So like all these graphs are at 50%, which is like, they are not doing any better than coin flip in terms of telling whether it was guessing whether it was human written or AI written. So you lose trust, and then you lose value because value of creative artifact. So you can see that, oh, like these days, university professor cannot really rely on statements like personal statement to evaluate their writing skill. Like, so the value of personal statement went lower than before because of AI. And then some people just lose interest in in a certain domain, and then this like top performer in Go, they just retired because of it after he was defeated by AI. And then value goes down and learning, learning activity will go down as well. So like, why do I have to, like, even that we have all these nice translation app, why would I have to learn new language? Like, it's like you could just ask them to talk to the phone and I'll be able to like understand and talk in that, native language. So the value of learning goes down. And because the learning is going down, like our expertise is going to decay as well. So, um, I personally feel like my writing skill is going down since I've been using like ChatGPT, even though like I I mean if without it, it's going to be really difficult to write these days, like it's because I've been using it so much and relying on it. And then lastly, because you lose expertise, you rely on it more, and then you have less engagement. That is going back to this quantity. So you rely on it more, you generate more quantity. So I feel like this is sort of very vicious cycle, how AI can discourage engagement. So, and I wanted to break the cycle or understand how we can preserve the engagement or fun that we've been having or learning activity that we've been having. And so like why engagement is important is that this cycle is going to increase the quantity of AI generated artifact, and that the scale of the AI generated artifact is directly relevant to all the important problems that we saw in the first slide, like all these misinformation, accountability, trust, like those are more serious problem perhaps than engagement, but like if you can solve the engagement, we may be able to mitigate some of the other problems that we have. So one project that I wanted to understand is that like present today is that how do we improve learning activity? So I was just focusing on one of the arrows in this vicious cycle. So I wanted to present this recent work that we conducted and published. We're going to present this in Kai. And this is Jelson's work, who is in the room, I think, and other collaborators, including Virginia Tech faculty and then the neighbor AI lab. So we first wanted to understand how it works and how people use, you know, generative AI. So ChatGPT poses as a threat to education through, especially in writing. So there are a lot of educators or practitioners who was concerned about ChatGPT, like threatening the college education or high school education. And there's like in general, I think it's like really big crisis for education, and then people are changing, and people are I guess kind of do not know what to do with it. And one of the quotes that I really liked was that like this sci-fi novelist Ted Chiang said that using ChatGPT to complete assignment is like bringing a forklift into the weight room. You will never improve your cognitive fitness that way. So, yeah, I don't know if I agree with this 100% because people will have to learn how to use AI effectively because they're going to be demanded to use it when they go out in the world for the productivity benefit that it's going to bring. So, but like obviously there's some part that you cannot learn if you rely on it too much. And then like when it comes to writing, like some people may say like let's generate the essay, um, like just copy and pasting the entire essay prompt to ChatGPT and then hey ask it to give me an essay. Or some people may use it differently. So we don't really know what they do. So first idea was that how we somebody may use ChatGPT more like a forklift, which does not make sense to um, improve their writing skills. Some people may use it more like a assistance tool, like this picture here shows exoskeleton, where it's sort of like augmenting human motor skills or power. Or some could be more like a coach, or some people could be just like a simple tool, like if it was like a spelling check or grammar fix, maybe it's going to be fine. So we wanted to understand how people use it. So we paused this research question. The first question is how do they use ChatGPT, and then we wanted to see what actually they do because instructors do not know. Like they can only guess, right? They can only guess that oh they're using ChatGPT to do homework, but honestly that we don't like our instructors do not really know. So they cannot access the history. So and then we wanted to check how that predicts, I mean, how what demographic information predicts their usage and how it influences their say characteristic and how it impact use students' experience, such as perceived ownership. So what we did was that we recruited 77 college students and asked them to write ChatGPT, asked them to write an essay, and then we give them ChatGPT and we encourage them, or we did not encourage them, we allowed them to use ChatGPT only if they want to. And we did not encourage or discourage them from using ChatGPT. And we logged all the question and all the answers and all the editor activities such as copy and paste or keystrokes, so we can know what exactly they did with their responses that they got from ChatGPT. So, and then copy paste event were also captured. And we wanted to use this, we collected 347 GPT queries from 77 students, and we coded all the queries using this framework called Flower and Hayes Cognitive Process Theory of Writing Model. So the model say that there are three phases of writing. So first one is planning, which is about generating ideas and goals and organizing thought and outlining the writing. And translating is like translating ideas into words or text and expressing part. And reviewing is like evaluating the writing and making revision. So we use these three high-level categories to categorize all the um, query that they made. But also we realized that there's other new category, which is like all of the above, right? And so if somebody asks like, hey, write a short essay that responds to this prompt and then paste the entire essay prompt, it's gonna be, it's taking care of all the phases that they talked about, we just saw. So we created all category. Um, yeah. So I just wanted to like, move on to the result section because like, I will skip the method. But like in general, there are lots of different categories that we found. The first part is planning. So planning category, roughly near the half of the participant use at least one planning category. So you can see some examples here, like please list jobs that could be replaced by machine automation, which is kind of like getting ideas about, um, what kind of jobs are replaced. Some people use it kind of like a search engine, like how many people have lost jobs due to automation, which is probably they're not going to get like clear answer, but they still use ChatGPT to get some ideas and impacts that they're getting. The third one, what kind of essay format would be best for this prompt? I was thinking standard 5 paragraph approach. So this person was asking the outline and structure of the essay that they have to write. So it was like generating ideas of what to write about. So they were asked to write about machine automation, whether they were going to choose dystopian view or positive view um, or another view. But in general, like they were using ChatGPT to think about what to write about on the given the essay prompt. But it's some of the queries are kind of like search engine, but it is much more convenient because like if you do some research using search engine, you would have to go through each page and evaluate it, and then sort of like there's some curation process, like and comparison process. Whereas ChatGPT is just going to give you one single answer, and then you can the only decision that you have to make is like take it or leave it, right? Planning or actually, oh yeah, so planning 45% roughly. Translating, we didn't find that much. So it's like 13% of the people had some translating query. Um, Review inquiry was pretty active, 44%. So some of the reviewing example could be obviously proofreading or polishment or revision, like a lot of people may use. So I'm also using ChatGPT for this reason a lot, like revising, polishment, and proofreading or grammar, spell check. And so the other kinds of example that we found is like evaluation of the essay. So like like evaluate my essay and then give me feedback and then give me a ways to improve it. So those sort of evaluation could have been done, by themselves, but then it is they are relying on ChatGPT to get some feedback. So they're losing some sort of meta level critical engagement with their own essay. Some people use like, prompt like, oh, like I wrote this thing, make it sound like college students. So they are changing the level of, I don't know, how sophisticated the essay is by giving them some level of, like writing level. And then finally, all was the most frequent category. Like it's more than half of the participant asked ChatGPT to write part of the essay, or if not the entire essay, without giving specific. So it's just like pasting the essay prompt entirely and then ask it to, hey, write a short essay with a utilitarian perspective, responding to prompt, and that's it. And some other um, prompt is like, just asking it to improve it without giving any specifics. So if they provided some ideas on how to improve it, we perhaps categorize it as reviewing category, but like something like this, which is make it sound intelligent and make it long without like, and then without providing any clue on how to do it. Like we thought it was just delegating the work to ChatGPT, so we categorize it as all. So this is just like more concerning type of use for ChatGPT if it was like a essay assignment in a class setting. This was like online study, then like there was no grade, there was no compensation for doing it. But I mean, other than raffle that we had, so like in a class when you have to write an essay by tomorrow, and then like you're probably going to be tempted to use generative AI to generate thing, and like because an instructor will not like distinguish whether it is human written or not. Although like if it sounds too good, they can get a sense on like whether the student used ChatGPT or not, but you cannot actually prove it, right? The instructor cannot prove it. So we did another type of analysis, like to see whether we can predict how often students will use ChatGPT. So we did mixed effects model, if I remember correctly. So like it's kind of the question of who are likely to use it more than others. And we collected demographic information such as race, gender, age. And then we also had like two pre-study standard questionnaire like that measure writing self-efficacy and technology acceptance model to see whether how many questions they ask is associated with these like factors. So just to roughly give you some ideas on what the result says, without any details, like mathematical details. So we run generalized linear model, and the lower writing self-efficacy, they ask more queries. So like you can imagine that like if they're not confident in writing, they're going to use ChatGPT more. And then so yeah, that's the less confident they were, the more they use ChatGPT. So technological acceptance is how much they trust ChatGPT, and interestingly, how much they accept the ChatGPT or perceived it like is in a good way did not predict how much they use ChatGPT, which may suggest that like whether I like it or not, or whether I think it's useful or not, they still may use it if they are situated to use it. Like this is sort of like a study where they are situated to use the ChatGPT. Interestingly, for whatever reason that I don't understand, white or male participant used more than other racial gender group. The younger they were, the more they used ChatGPT. The younger they were like using all query, which means like sort of like a cheating query where it generates the entire essay. So there was like a sort of how we can predict like and what kind of demographic information can predict like the query count. So that was the second question result. The other thing that we did was that how their usage of ChatGPT impacts like perceived ownership. We also measured creative support index, but I'm not going to talk about it today because for the sake of time. So we did clustering first. Like we categorized everyone into one of the six group, like using k-mean clustering. So we had six cluster, and then we represent each individual with these PTRA, like planning, translating, and reviewing all query count or portion. So we found six cluster. Actually, this is typo. Six cluster. Group N is like people who do not ask any question. Group P is like primarily planning. Group T is primarily translating, which is like green line here. Group R is primarily reviewing, which is the red line here. Group O is primary O, which is like this purple line, and mixed group, which is like using like different kinds of queries all at the same time. So we asked their perceived ownership and then like measured the perceived ownership per group, and then realized that um, so no query group, N group, which is people who do not use ChatGPT at all, had a higher perceived ownership than all group, which is like people who generated the essay, which makes sense, right? Like, they didn't write the essay on their own, so they have a lower perceived ownership. Interestingly, planning and reviewing group had higher perceived ownership than all group as well. So obviously, this is a sort of obvious case, right? Where no query group is higher than all. But this too is kind of surprising, where even when they generate the ideas from planning, like from ChatGPT, they still believe that they wrote the thing like in compared to and then it did not. The more surprising thing is that like these people who did not use ChatGPT at all, they didn't have any difference, like like any we couldn't find any statistical significance difference between other groups except all groups. So it is kind of perhaps it's concerning that like students still may feel that they wrote their essay on their own, even when they use ChatGPT in a perhaps concerning way. So, like mixed is also concerning way because they are using it in every possible way. So this was like alarming to us, like in terms of education. We also what happened to this? Okay, so there's some weird animation error, but let me just So we did another clustering based on how they contributed to the essay. This is like a new paper that we wrote. So I'm including this new result for this talk. And we look at to this two dimension, which is like human contribution rate is like how much of the essay is written by student versus ChatGPT. If it's directly pasted from ChatGPT entirely, it's going to be zero. If they never pasted any words from ChatGPT, it's going to be one. So that's like a human contribution, but that did not, that has some limitation. Like this contribution rate has some limitation because like some people might have wrote the entire essay on their own and then just proofread it in ChatGPT and then put it back entirely. That means that human contribution rate is going to be zero because everything is pasted from ChatGPT. So we had to like develop another rate, which is human effort rate. And I'm not going to talk about the method detail, but it represent how much efforts in terms of edit they made to the essay. So we found these four cluster using k-means clustering. So one of them is lead author who had a high effort and then high contribution rate. So if they did not use ChatGPT at all, it's going to be 1, 1. So this is the lead author group, and the other group is the vibe writer. We call them vibe writer, like kind of like a vibe coding, where like they don't have to type anything, where they just talk to ChatGPT and then generate stuff and then put it in the editor, including like generating the entire essay. So we have a group called VibeWriter. We have collaborator. You can assume that it's like half and half, like half written by themselves and half written by ChatGPT. And the last is like drafter is like they wrote their own thing and then, they probably replaced it with what ChatGPT like reviewed and revised. So they have a like low human contribution rate because like a lot of it is pasted from ChatGPT, but they did a lot of work to create the initial draft and then maybe get some assistance from ChatGPT. And we looked at perceived ownership between these four groups, and obviously lead author has higher perceived ownership than collaborator group and vibe writer group. Not necessarily with drafter groups, but it makes sense. Like the drafter group wrote a significant amount of part on their own, but then like they had a um, small, low like human contribution rate because like they perhaps like revised it using ChatGPT and then pasted the entire thing. We also looked at readability, and then Dale Chell score is like the number that represent how sophisticated the essay is. So higher the better, higher the more sophisticated. So 10 is kind of like college level students. So you can see that all group has the higher readability score than many other groups. And then on the left figure, and then on the right figure, you can see that lead author group has lower readability score than all the other groups that use ChatGPT. So the more assistance you get, the more sophisticated the essay will read. So you can see that how ChatGPT, they use ChatGPT in terms of ask question queries that they're asking and how they use like, integrate their response from ChatGPT is directly affect the readability score. So you can imagine that the motivation to use ChatGPT if they are situated to or if they're allowed to, because it's going to sound more, sophisticated with these assistants, right? So what's the takeaway? So those who are less confident tend to use ChatGPT more frequently. When situation calls for it, they may use it regardless of whether they personally accept ChatGPT or not. The younger generation tends to use it more often. ChatGPT does not necessarily diminish their sense of ownership of the work, except for the clear reliance, which was all group. And those are kind of the summary of findings that we have. So that's what we did, and how we got to have better understanding of how students use ChatGPT, and what are we going to do with this. So next follow project that we are doing. Um, Obviously, Jelson is leading this project, and we are creating this accountable generative UI AI use and integration and learning. So we're using this platform that we developed, and then we wanted to create this to something that instructor can use in the classroom. So what's going to happen is that text editor is going to ban copy paste events from external sources, but instead we're going to provide in-house generative AI like ChatGPT so that they are allowed to use it, but they are accountable for it, meaning that all the question history, and answer will be shared, and they will know that they are shared with the instructor. So students carry responsible and edit records will be available to instructor. And by revealing the data, like instructor will be able to think about what are the class policy or like AI policy that I can provide to students. So like, hey, like, spelling check or grammar check is fine, but you never should use ChatGPT for X. Like that's like something that each instructor can develop depending on the context of the work. And students will be accountable for their ChatGPT usage. And like what's good about this, like if we keep collecting these data and then using the taxonomy that we develop from this work, we'll be able to make this in-house generative AI behave differently depending on how instructor configures it. So we are going to allow them to, reconfigure the behavior of generative AI so that like generative AI will perhaps scaffold answers when they were asked to generate like ideas or like decline to generate the essay entirely. So like we can give instructor a tool that they can use in their classroom context, at least for writing education. So that's the end of the project, and we're almost out of time. And then my battery is running out, so like I'm kind of being anxious about it. So 13%. Okay. Um, but I would encourage you to think about where we can work on the cycle. Like, what part of this cycle can you work to preserve the engagement and learning to cope with AI? But I wanted to give you a different story. Like, is breaking the cycle the only way? And then one story that I like is that like the technology of photo, like camera, how it disrupted art when in like, a couple of centuries ago, like, before the camera, the arts, like expertise in art was like how much they can paint, artists can draw close to real things. So photorealism was the like sort of expertise criteria. But with camera, like it just disrupted the art practice and people like moved away from photorealism. And then that's how this new art practice, um, you know, um, became a main like mainstream. But that's not the only thing that happened. The other thing that happened is that eventually technology, I mean, even when technology came, like camera became a thing, we still have this, photorealism when someone start to learn art education, like when they learn, they still have to think about how to identify the figure of the object and how to make how to make like paint create a painting that is close to the thing that I'm drawing as much as possible. So in education, you don't talk about, oh, a camera can do that, so we don't have to learn how to draw it realistically. So like nobody complains about that, right? So there's some banning and regulation happening in education setting. But also the other thing happened is that camera become a new art practice. So photography is a new art practice. So I don't know what it's going to be, but like this AI tool that we're bringing is going to not only, we have to think about how to break the cycle, but also we could use it in a creative way to create a new art practice and new expression or new engagement that we can think of. So here's my suggestion to you, use AI to engage them in learning. So I just wanted to introduce a recent project that I did in Neighbor. So this is like interesting study where for ESL speaker, English as a second language speaker or foreign language speaker, they heavily rely on generative AI for English related question at work. And the question was, how can we engage them in learning effectively and leveraging their reliance to AI? And then what we do is that like whenever they ask a question to ChatGPT at work, we capture all this history and then the context, the work context that they're doing, and then use those history to generate a quiz out of the content that they're reviewing. So it's kind of like a Duolingo, but then questions are generated from, let's say, paper that they had to read or the email that they had to write. So the learning material is much more relevant to um, what they're studying and what they're working on. So we actually this was also published in Kai. So there's like a review video, but I'm gonna have to skip it for the sake of time. And I would suggest using AI to enable new expression. Again, I'm probably going to skip the project. The last suggestion is to use AI to facilitate new creative participation. And one theory I wanted to highlight is like, Nash's pyramid of leisure. So Nash is like a famous, like, seminal education researcher who like kind of settled like the how physical education work at school, like in today's school. So the least low level leisure is like spectatorship or entertainment. Like it's just like listening to music, watching sports. And then higher level is more like emotional participation, which is kind of like going to live concert or fandom, being part of the serious like consumer. Active participation is like playing part, cover band, playing game. And creative participation is actually making music or composing music or inventing a new artifact and so forth, right? So you can think about if I'm doing an AI creativity related project, am I um, enabling higher level of leisure, or am I allowed, I mean, are we like, lowering the, entertainment to lower level? So, I mean, if I got the lower level battery sign right now, so if I disappear, that's because my laptop dies, so bear with me. So we are also working on these kind of project where parents and AI agent will read a book together as if it was like a theatrical performance, and we can use multimodal signals such as like gaze or touch input or voice to um, for parents to talk about book content with their children in an effective way. So we're enabling more like creative participation so that like actually children can participate in this theatrical play with in the context of storytelling, which is also we work with my collaborator and my students. And it's just like some of the suggestions that I can think of easily, but I'm pretty sure there's going to be many more direction that you can take. So that's all for today. So I would like to highlight the importance of engagement in the context of generative AI. So I wish you could think about how to use AI to have more fun and to engage people in creative practice and entertainment or art and anything that you enjoy. All right, thank you.